If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time,
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the August the 16th edition of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and we do thank you for being in contact or getting in contact with today's show. As usual, if you would like to be a participant in today's show, all you have to do is to call this number, which is 516-453-9921, and make sure that you press the number 1 button so that you can get in line, and you can have a question or a quick VGQ. Make sure that you give your name to the call screener. They will put it up on the screen so that I could read it or read your name, hopefully properly. I will make every effort that I can to do that, and then we can proceed from there. You can also, if you would like, Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com. And once I get that, I will print on there, got it, which means that you will go into a rotation, and as time permits, your question will be addressed to Mr. Fuller, and I will give you the date and the time when that will happen. You can also listen to the program. Now, listen very carefully. You can listen to the program by going also into the chat room. Now, please, ma'am, please, sir, in the chat room, go ahead and chat and make sure you are codified, following all the rules. But the chat room is not necessarily for you to ask me a question to ask Mr. Fuller. Please do not do that. Just call the number for that and then have Mr. Fuller address your question. Occasionally, there are some comments that are in the chat room that I will address. Construction action items does give a recap of a previous show, and there are usually rules that are or a code that is in there, and if you're familiar with how this works, you follow that code in there. Hey, no name calling. Okay. We were just informed that all the books will be in, I believe, this afternoon. So when Mr. Fuller does talk about the books and where you can get them, which is at producejustice.com, that is at producejustice.com. You can get them there. He will talk about all that and whatever related information that is available for you at that particular time. So with that being said, let's say this. Good morning, Mr. Fuller, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
You are still learning. Okay, Mr. Fuller, the mind and the thoughts and the expressions on the mind of Neely Fuller, Jr. What's on your mind starting off today's program, Mr. Fuller?
Well, I think I'll just go right straight to it. The main thing, solutions to problems, and that is, what does that really require? It requires all black people with their problems to make sure that any contact they make with any person, white or non-white, to just make this like a part of, well, make it a religion, really, a part of whatever religion they happen to have. Just an absolute. No non-constructive contacts at all. Make every contact that you deliberately set or plan on having or just in passing, stay away from any situation where there's going to be contacts with people, any type of people, in any circumstance, where you can't actually look at those contacts and say, now these are constructive contacts. These are constructive contacts. I made 5 contacts, major contacts with people today, and every last one of those contacts, I made 3 with white people, I made 2 with black people. Every one of those contacts, I'm just giving an example now, I came away with a constructive result. And tomorrow, the same thing I have planned, or I'm looking forward to. And the next day, and the next day. And for how long? Nothing but constructive contacts. As long as you're breathing, if you can pull it off. Because, why am I saying this? All this killing and the things that black people start out doing, partying and grinning and hugging and kissing and whatnot, and then it winds up all messed up. It all comes from non-constructive contacts. Your contacts are non-constructive. You should plan on your contacts and make sure that they're constructive. If you spend 15 minutes with a person, you want every one of those 15 minutes in their presence, where you're interacting with that person, to have some constructive value, not just doing stuff. Black people are famous for just doing stuff, doing stuff, doing stuff. Go here, go there, rushing here, rushing there, losing sleep, just doing stuff. And then crying about the result of every one of those contacts that they made. It's a part of black culture, modern black culture. And we don't want to turn loose to it. So ACC, all constructive contacts, in order to do what? Produce constructive results. If every contact that you make with somebody produces a constructive result, I'm talking about helping you. Because when you help yourself, and if every black person is making constructive contacts, everything that we do is going to turn out to be, at the end of the day, you say, hey, I made about 30 contacts today, small ones and some pretty big ones. All of them produce constructive results. Not a non-constructive result came out of any one of those contacts.
Okay.
And suppose you could, you do, the people who are listening right now, suppose that happened for the rest of the year. By the end of December, you could look back from this day in August, and you have had nothing but constructive contacts that produce constructive results. If they don't produce constructive results, they're not constructive contacts. But you can say, wow, nothing has ever happened like this in my entire life. Once I concentrated on doing it, I just politely let people know that, that there are things that I have to do. And if they ask for details, you say, well, I have to make some very constructive contacts, because the contacts that I've been making, some of them have been constructive. Most of them haven't been, like it is with most black people. Most of your contacts are non-constructive, truth be told, at least in the northwestern hemisphere. But just think about those two words, constructive contacts. Constructive contacts equal constructive results. Can't do anything else but. So you say, well, I just like to kind of just kind of like be loose. Okay, be loose what? The person who is hanging from the end of a rope is loose. Is that a constructive contact with that rope? That's all I'm talking about.
Constructive contacts.
Now, I might be revisiting that quite some time, because why do anything? Why read a book? Why go anywhere? We're going on vacation. We're going to the islands. You going to have any constructive contacts? That's in any move you make. You only have what? Time and energy.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're given from birth. Those two things. You should use that time and energy making constructive contacts, not only with people, but with things. When you walk through the marketplace and you look at the different foods, and then you look at some people who are over there cooking food, go over there and take a look. Now you see some big, thick meats over there. I mean, it smells good, and you just want to dive right in because you're hungry. But stop and think about it. That's a contact. If you eat some of that real thick steak, this might be controversial with a lot of people, but I'm just saying from what I've heard and from what I've experienced myself, that real thick steak looks real good, and if you're real hungry, you enjoy eating it. But then what does the steak, I'm just going to put it in the form of a question, what does steak actually do when it goes into the body of a person and becomes a part of the body of that person, because that's what happens, and is no longer a body of the cow? What does it do for the body of the person? Does that steak make a constructive contact with the body of a person? And is the body of a person designed to welcome steak? T-bone steak, something that most people would enjoy eating, well prepared, tasty, and filling. But what does it actually do to your body? Does it build it up or tear it down? And if it tears it down, is that a constructive contact? See, lots of things that we want to do don't have constructive results. Just something to think about, and I would say something to think about. That's the essence of your entire life. For everybody out there, even white people who are listening. Constructive, non-constructive. Nothing else in between.
Mm-hmm. All right. Constructive contacts. Okay. Well, you can contact us if you'd like to, especially if you are listening. 516-453-9921 is the contact number, since we're talking about contacts and constructive contacts specifically. And make sure that when you do get a contact on the end of that number, make sure that you give the call screener your name, because I'm looking at the screen right now, and there's somebody that hasn't given the call screener their name. So make sure that you do, so that way I can identify you. All righty. By the way, if you are a new caller, make sure that you tell the call screener that you are a new caller, and you will be elevated. Check that out, elevated. And speaking about new callers, got one right here. Trey from, Sydney, Australia? Oh, man, you in the house, man. You get first dibs. So let me see if I can get you right in here. Okay, Trey, good morning and welcome to the CRCS. What is your question for Mr. Fuller?
How you doing, guys? Thank you so much, Mr. Bobby and Mr. Fuller. I'll be brief, as you always say. I just want to give first a shout-out to one of my clients. His name is Shane Alexander. He's the first guy who gave me all the information for Mr. Fuller's work about 3 years ago, and ever since then, I've been listening faithful to this one as well as the Carl Nelson Show. About 2 weeks ago, you guys, Mr. Fuller, you answered my question, and I want to thank you for that, but I think I constructed the question incorrectly when I asked in regards to you giving a master class. I completely understand that words are powerful, and I constructed that incorrectly. So what I wanted to do today is ask that question again, but ask it in a different way if possible. I completely understand, Mr. Fuller, that like all of us, you are a victim of white supremacy and therefore a prisoner of war. Also, that you're no master of white supremacy because, like you said, it still exists. And the reason I asked in regards to you giving a more in-depth breakdown in what you state in regards to what white supremacy is and how it works. I wanted to know if it's be possible at all if you could give a more in-depth breakdown at some point in regards to explaining more about your works, if possible.
Well, all it is just trying to feel my way. Compensatory, that's why I call it the compensatory code. Compensatory means what? Making up for what's missing. Well, what's missing? Well, everything that should be, and too much of a lot of things that should be is what we have, and we don't have any way of figuring out how to weave our way through what shouldn't be and have compensate for it by have what should be. We should have justice, which means a situation where no one is mistreated. No one is mistreated. And all of the people who need help the most get the most constructive help. That's the compensatory definition for justice, because we don't have a definition for justice that makes sense, in my opinion, of the ones that I've seen, the definitions that I've seen in dictionaries, encyclopedias. They were too loose. They gave some type of guidance. Otherwise, I couldn't have built on them. But I came up with the definition for justice, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. Now, you can usually know if it's 10 people in a room, if there's somebody being mistreated, which one of those 10 people are being mistreated. You can usually sense that by what is going on in that room, how the people are interacting with each other. See, making contact with each other. Now, somebody might be mistreated. And that's if anybody in the room is being mistreated. All right? But if nobody's in the room being mistreated, and everybody in the room who needs help the most is getting it, and it's just 10 people in the room, you have a just situation right there. But then it's got to be within the context of the entire world, because just sometimes, like a lot of us become a little comfortable in our little nook, but that only lasts for a while when you just can't stay in that one little room. Yes, you can treat each other royally. 10 people in a room, if they stay in that room forever and never come out, you can say, hey, and nobody ever gets mistreated, and everybody treats everybody kindly. Everybody sees to it that the person that needs help the most gets it. But they're in one room. But you're not just in one room. You're in the entire universe. And you should aspire to be universal people. So, but there are people who take the position, I'm angry with this entire world. It's all messed up. It ain't going to never get straightened out. And there are songs that have been written that says that. The world is the same. You never change it. So what they do is go somewhere and hide in a cave. And they just sit there. And nobody bothers them. Nobody's there knows, it's so far away, and nobody wants to be bothered with going looking for somebody in a cave anyway. So they just hide, spend the rest, all of their days alone, put up with the misery and whatnot, become primitive, know how to survive, sometimes eating small animals and insects. A person can do that. They can opt out. Lots of people have. But we're not put here to do that either. Logically speaking, we're put here to solve problems. What problems? The one right in front of you. That's what you start with. So I'm just saying, these are the major things that should be concentrated on. What are we here for? We meaning whom? Just black people? No, everybody on the planet, logically speaking, put here to do what? Solve problems. But you can't solve problems by making problems.
Mm-hmm.
Or being around people who are dedicated to making problems. That's not solving problems. Making problems is not solving problems. And you don't even, when you're in the process of solving problems, you have to solve problems without making new problems. Now, that's something people don't think about a lot. White supremacists do a lot of that. A lot of it. And they'll say that we did this and we did this and we accomplished this and we were able to travel through space and we did this. Say, well, wait a minute. Did you mistreat anybody along the way? Did you help the people who needed help the most along the way? From all that did this and did that? Did anybody starve while you were pounding yourself on the chest about some great accomplishment? But somebody starved to death on account of you took the resources away for your project, poisoned the soil, the ground, getting your project together, left the people with poisoned water so that the babies were born deformed in order to have your great engineering project. You solve problems without making any. They say, well, sacrifices have to be made. No. You don't sacrifice people. Things are done in behalf of people. You sit down and do a little bit more figuring, spend a little more time at the drawing board when you get these wonderful projects all planned out.
Mm-hmm.
You say, well, we're going to have to eliminate about 500 people in the process. What do you mean? That's what you got to do. You don't have to do that. Do a little more engineering, please.
Mm-hmm.
And the non-white people have picked that up.
Yes,
so
sir.
I hope I haven't digressed from the question. But we're put here to solve problems. I mean, just stop and think about that all day, which means you have to have constructive contacts, not only with people, but with things. Make everything that you're consciously aware of to the best of your ability. You make a lot of mistakes. I mean, particularly black people, we're in position to make nothing but mistakes. I mean, the white supremacists have got it all set up where we are mistake makers. In every move that we make, we don't do anything that's not a mistake. Until they come around and say, well, let me have you do something constructive now. That's what you people are for. But when you're off on your own, you don't do anything but just mess up everything. That's why you have to keep running to me. After you keep killing yourselves and whatnot, you keep running to me, want me to patch you up and all like that. And I do. Why? Because I'm your God, that's why.
Wow. All righty. Trey, not Troy, but Trey in Australia, new caller. Don't be a stranger. Thank you for calling. Let me do a break here so we can continue it. You are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and to get in contact with the show, just simply dial this number, which is 516-453-9921. And when you do that, make sure that you press the number 1 button so that you can get in line to ask Mr. Fuller a question or a quick VTQ. I stress, please, man, please, sir, make it quick, make it short. You don't have to go into a great soliloquy about whatever it is that you're trying to make. Just make it short and sweet because we are on a limited time basis. So please, man, please, sure, take that in mind. You can also contact the show or by my Gmail address. That is the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY @gmail.com. Do that bad boy, and occasionally, or when the time permits, I will read it and give you the date and time that your Gmail will be read, and I will get back to you by saying, got it. Okay, got it? And last at least, and not least, you can join the chat room. I believe I did forget to give that information before, but all you have to do is go to blogtalkradio.com. You want to get on programs, and then there it is, the Produce Justice Show. Click that bad boy on. And when you do that, a box will come up that says chat, and you can get into the chat room and go for it. And all my chatters, for the most part, are all codified. And if you are not going to be codified, they have a particular way of guiding you, I say that, into codification. We all should be codified. All righty. Books are all in at producejustice.com, which Mr. Fuller will discuss later on in the program. All righty. Let's go to Milwaukee. Mr. Corey, good morning, and you are on with Mr. Fuller. Go for it.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, man.
Not last week, but 2 weeks ago, you answered a question, again, that someone asked about proving the existence of the system of racism, white supremacy. And you said it can't be proved because the racist will say it does not exist. Can we look at the system of white supremacy similar to a collapsing star in the universe? It becomes invisible but only recognizable due to the reactions of the things in the universe around it, such as planets and light pulled into its gravitational destructive force. Is this how we can actually prove or say, yes, it does exist because of our reactions?
No, I gave the answer. I can't prove. See, that's the magic of white supremacy. systems of white supremacy cannot prove anything. Right? I can't prove anything at all in the system of white supremacy without the white supremacists' approval. It's just a prison system, that's all. The white supremacists come around and say, this is not a prison system. This is heaven. You people are experiencing heaven. It doesn't get any better than this, including all the killing in Chicago and whatnot. This is the way it ought to be. And so a black person would say, oh, it's so miserable and whatnot. I'm saying it. No, it's not the way it ought to be. And the white supremacists look around and say, what's wrong with you? This is the way it ought to be. This is paradise. This is as good as it gets. Doesn't get no better than this. You see anything better than this? And then they walk off. Now, I say, well, just because you said it's that way, sir, that doesn't mean that it's true. And then he'll look around, or she, if she's a white supremacist, and say, what did I say? I said, this is heaven. And I said, well, where's your proof that this is heaven? And then they look at you and blink and say, the proof is, I said so. Duh. And then turn around and walk off. Now, what am I going to do? Come back here. Come back here and tell me, I'm going to prove to you. I can't prove nothing. No black person can prove anything to a white person in the system of white supremacy. Bottom line.
All right, Corey.
All that white person got to say is, that's not no proof. That's just a Negro talking. Ain't proof of nothing. What can you people prove? Who you gonna prove it by? You gotta prove it by me. Otherwise, if I don't sign on for it, it doesn't exist. Negro, you ain't figured that out by now?
Thank you, Corey. Don't be a stranger to my brother. We're talking about, or we started off with, Mr. Fuller started off with constructive context. What is that? Use logic. What is it, and how does it work? You got to use logic. Cause and effect. Use logic. We're going to go to the logic of New York City. Been so nice they had to name it twice. Guess who's there beside Dollar Bill? We got George. George, New York, there you are, NYC. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning,
one heads
sir.
up, I'm at a train station, so you'll have to excuse me if you hear like a passing train coming by. But actually, could you skip to the next caller and I can return if you like this two voice?
You're probably going to have to repeat that because the train is in the background.
Yes. You'll probably have to proceed to the next caller and I can return afterwards because I want to get out of this train station before I make my question. Is that all right?
I didn't hear that because the train was going by. What'd you say?
I'm sorry, Mr. Bobby. Could you go to the next caller and then come back to me so I can
tell you what.
Be out of the train station?
Okay. Yeah, I could do that. Okay, I'll hang on, or maybe the call screen will work it out, for you. Okay. Let me see if I can do this. Okay. Well, the next caller is the holler. Hey, on my assessment board, I get a lot of calls from New York City, and right now, when I say holler, you know what that is? That's the dollar. Dollar bill.
Well, yes,
go
sir.
On, boy.
Yes,
go
sir.
on, boy. You go, boy.
You know it. And I know that brother on the train. I mean, that was a smart move. I'm going to keep it quick, and I want to say good morning. Good morning, gentlemen. I'm so happy that you're back this week, Mr. Fuller. Missed you. I was like, everybody. But then I looked at, there was a message on the board on your, on Produce Justice that said that everything was fine. So that kind of put me back in good spirits.
All right.
What I want to talk to you about today, Mr. Fuller, and everything. Your stuff is so tight. It's very hard to get you to move on certain things because your information is so correct and so precise. But I want to go to your word guide, and on page 248 and 249, you have some terms there, and I wanted you to really just tell us how did you come up with the use of these terms. On page 248 and 249, and I'm just going to, at the bottom of 248, use the word multi-race, multiracial, and you said do not use those terms. I was also, and then you have the other term after that where you give your reason, and then you have your notes, and then your next word is mutant. And there were words that are coming out, multiculturalism, which I know you have said in the past you do not like that term. But I wanted you to combine that with multi-race, multiracial, multicultural, and mutant, and explain to us why you chose these terms even to put in the book and why that we shouldn't use these words or we should use them with caution. I think that's what you said, or do not use these terms. And that's it for today.
Well, I think I did that in the book, didn't I?
Yes, you did. But I was wondering, why did you pick those words?
Oh, because people use those words, multicultural. I just picked out some words that I hear people using. That's how they got in there in the first place. If people weren't using the words still existed. But if people weren't using the words, and I was listening to how they use the words, what is multicultural? Everything is multicultural. First of all, let's look at the word itself. Not the first part of it, but cultural, the last part of it. You can look at the first part, multi meaning many. Many cultures, okay? So what is culture? What exactly is culture? You can look up culture, too, while you're doing that, okay? Culture, really, when you stop and think about it, maybe for 10 days, study it, just that one word, culture. What is culture? Culture is what you're doing at the time you're doing it. If you're paddling a canoe paddling is your culture. Why? That's what you're doing. A person says, what is Mac doing over there? He's over there paddling his canoe. Now, when Mac gets out of that canoe and starts eating a sandwich, canoe paddling is not a part of his culture. Sandwich eating is. Why? Because that's what he's doing. See, people don't think of culture that way. They think culture is some type of mysterious package that you put together. No, whatever you're doing, if you're participating in a drive-by shooting, that's your culture. And if you're a black person doing it, that is black culture. See, we got to call things what they are and stop playing games with words. Oh, now we have to, I'm going overseas. I'm going to travel 10,000 miles because I heard that there's a huge part of black culture that is buried up under a tree somewhere in Sumatra. The white supremacist looks at that and say, that's just somebody looking for something to do. That doesn't, first of all, doesn't have anything to do with solving problems, which is all that I'm interested in, which is what we do. And his problems got to be solved. Everybody runs to us anyway. Why? Because we're busy solving problems and knowing how to solve problems. Why? Because when you know how to solve problems, you attract a lot of attention. I mean, that's just the law of the universe. The white supremacists understand that. But they teach black people just the opposite. Be a problem maker, and you'll attract a lot of attention. That's true, too. But it doesn't help very much. You can get a lot of attention making problems. All right? And the white supremacists, they say, hey, when it comes to problem solving, better look for somebody white. Bundle up all your children and whatnot, cross the desert, and get into a boat. Hope that the boat is not overloaded and don't turn over before you do what? Come and find me, your savior. Why? Because I am a problem solver, and you can't find nobody with a dark skin that can solve a problem. That's why you are always looking for me, talking about you are a refugee.
Okay.
Think about it, folks. Am I telling the truth or am I lying?
All righty. The dollar, we got the holler. You don't be a stranger either. George, we're going to go back to you in NYC, see if you're off that platform. Let's see. George, are you there?
Yep, I'm back.
Okay,
I'm in a
George.
little bit of a better situation here.
Yes.
Yes, so I'll get straight into it. Now, this weekend I was watching a country western movie by the name of Shane. It seems that country western movies seem to be a big thing in white supremacist cinema or like western cinema, and I was wondering what the significance of western movies were in Hollywood. After watching the movie, it was a very good movie. I was looking to see if it was going to be on Mr. Fuller's movie list, and it happened to be there. So I wanted to ask Mr. Fuller, why did you add the movie Shane by Alan Ladd onto your movie list, and what lessons could we learn from it?
Learn lessons, whatever lessons you look for. They start with the first scenes, the opening scenes. A person who is doing some farming. The person is trying to farm. And then a stranger comes there and introduces himself by the name of Shane. And so now this is a contact. We'll just look at it within, you can look at the movie and then start watching the contacts of the characters in the movie. That's in any movie. People in the movies are making contacts, usually with each other or with things or a combination of both. That's what's going on. Now, these contacts are either constructive or non-constructive. That's what you look for. See, these are lessons. There are lessons everywhere in anything, in a movie, in anything. When you look out your window, that's a school. If you're looking out a window, if you're somewhere where you see a window, or if you're outside, just look around you. There's lessons all around you. You are in school. You're in the universe. The universe is a university. We don't think like that. We have to get in the habit of thinking like that. So in the movie Shane, somebody shows up at a farm. Who is that somebody? He's making contact now with the people on the farm. It looks like he's what they called back in the old days a drifter. And he is. Meaning he has no roots. He doesn't have a farm. He's not driving cattle, which is what people did in that area, depicted in the movie Shane. You either connected somehow, directly or indirectly, with rounding up cattle, raising cattle, and selling them off, or you're farming. See, people have to do things. While you're on the planet, you got to be doing something. So what was Shane doing? Shane was making money as a what? Now, this didn't come out immediately. It took a little while for it to come out. but he seemed to be real good with a 6-shooter firearm, 45 caliber, hanging on his hip. But it didn't seem to be particularly connected with anything else. That ivory handle pistol and him and his horse. That's it. So what was he? He was a hired gun. But he was trying to get away from it. So he became a drifter, just doing odd jobs on people's ranches every now and then, and then moving on. So that was a lesson right there. What do people do? People have to be doing something. So that's one of the first things you think about when you're looking at a person. What do you do most of the time with your time and energy that you have? When you look at anybody, people that you know, all kinds of lessons. See, and then the movie moves on, and it reveals what everybody else does. The Riker brothers, okay? They are cattle people, and cattle people and ranchers didn't get along. Why? Because people who have farms, and trying to build farms, grow food, and et cetera like that, and they do a little ranching on the side, enough to keep themselves sustained. Meaning ranching mean what? Horses and cows and pigs, things like that, chickens. So in order to control your sheep or your horses, your cows there for your convenience, you build fences. And in the movie Shane, cattle people do not like fences except when they build them. Like the Riker brothers came and said to the cattleman, to the farmer rather, you people come here and fence off my range. And they say, this is not your range, this is open range and whatnot. No, you're fencing off my range because I was here first. And you build these fences, and I got to go around. I mean, my cattle have to have water. These fences do not allow them to get the water. And you just got here lately, and you building fences and talking about you going to be a farmer. And you build the fences for your convenience. Well, they're not for my convenience. And if you keep building them, I'm going to keep eliminating them. And if you keep doing it, I'm going to eliminate you. So that's when you send for the gunslingers. See, the whole world is run like that. See, just learn the lessons of what you're looking at. We're black people, I mean, you know, have just been trained to just look at the surface of things, but learn the details. And it's not any different from people today. The cowboy and rancher thing, that conflict. In one form or another, when you move to the city, it's the same thing. Black people saying, hey, you're fencing us off from where all the food is, the good food. So we're living in a food desert. They say, yeah, that's what we intend to do. Say, we've got to go 20 miles to find some decent food. They don't have they say, well, when we build a shopping center there for you and put a food mark there with good, healthy food, you come in there and steal it. We don't do business like that. So it closes. It's all boarded up. We had one there. But what they don't say is, you got 6 children, they ain't got no money, so naturally they're going to come in there and steal it. Now, how come they ain't got no money? That's where they would pay, but they wouldn't give them nothing to pay with. So they're going to come in there and steal stuff as long as you got it. Why? Because you're not paying the mother enough money to buy the food. That's why. Real simple. See, we need to learn how the whole world runs and connect things that don't look like they're connected. See, and that's what you can learn from looking at movies. Tons of lessons in all of the movies. Even when the gunslingers finally, you say, well, hey, we got a farmer out there that's got a gunslinger and he's pretty good. Name is Shane. Say, but we're going to send for one that's better, Jack Wilson. See, so here we go. That's how wars get started. Okay?
Okay. All righty. Thank you there, my brother. Mr. Fuller, let's talk about your book.
Yes, sir. Well, hopefully, the things that are said in the book, apparently haven't said enough to solve the problem, because I wrote the textbook for victims of white supremacy to solve the race problem, not to just keep playing around with it. I look around, I just want to express this, just interject this. I look at my bookshelf every day, and it's a horror story. My bookshelf, because it's got so many books. It's loaded. I'll never read all those books. I've read a few of them, but I haven't even scratched the surface. And I'm thinking of all the people who have loaded bookshelves. I'm thinking of the Martin Luther King Library, which I visited not on a number of occasions, and on the reopened library here in Washington, D.C. I went there. It's huge. It's got all kinds of books. And I'm thinking, the race problem is still a problem? Racism is still a problem? And you got these thousands of books. And plus you got the African American Museum down there. Tons of information. All kind of computerized stuff. And we're still talking about the race problem. This is crazy. And so my book is added to the bunch. And my books are pretty thick that you can get by going to producejustice.com. And it's supposed to be, I started writing it, once I started doing the updated versions, with the intention of saying, I'm not just talking about, categorizing and whatnot and keeping a record of the race problem. I'm writing this book to solve the race problem, period. Out of all the zillions of things that have been said and the meetings that's been said and whatnot, let's put a stop to this nonsense. This is crazy. This is a modern day. This is the year 2000, the series. That's when I started updating my original book from 1984. I say here in the year 2000, nobody should be writing anything that's not designed to solve the race problem if it's about race. That's what they should wave at the whole world. Say, now this is the book that I'm putting together to solve the race problem, not just talk about it and kick it down the road. Because we already got thousands of books doing that. We don't need no more, and that's the truth. Let's solve it. Solve it right now, this year, this month. So that's what I'm attempting to do. Now, obviously, I haven't done it. Otherwise, as long as we're having these conversations, it means Neely Fuller failed so far, like everybody else. Everybody's a failure at solving the race problem. Why? It's worse than ever. That's why. Everybody who has come before and everybody who's out here now, including Neely Fuller, is a failure. This thing should have been wrapped up, so far back that people say race problem. What is that? What is race? That's how everybody should be talking right now. But you can go and get my quote, unquote, contribution by going to producejustice.com.
Okay, producejustice.com. And all the...
I hope it helps to solve the race problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we were told this morning before we came on the air to the public or worldwide that the book should be in, I believe he said this afternoon. But anyway,
the 2016 updated version.
Yes. And the original was there, and the Word Guy is also done. Is that correct?
Available, right.
Yeah, available. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Thank you for that correction, available. Okay.
At producejustice.com.
All righty. Let me do this right here. Let me end this portion, and we'll go into the next. For the last hour, you have been listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. So we have come to the end of the first hour. Give me that music there. So we're going to stay tuned for the second hour of the the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Fuller, with your questions and your comments and any pertinent information will all be available to you if you keep on listening. If you have to go, thank you. And hopefully you'll return next week. And for those who are still on, hang on. We have another full hour to go on the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller. We'll take a 7-second break, and then we'll commence with the second hour. All righty. Somebody actually was counting. Welcome to the second hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Now, to get in contact with the show, and we are so glad that you are doing that, dial this number, 516-453-9921. And when you do, give the call screener your name so that I can properly introduce you without troubling over your name, which I have a tendency to do, but trust me, I am working on it. I'm trying to get better every show, but I still mess up. I'm still learning. Okay. You can also do this. You can also go get in contact with the show by doing my Gmail address, which is the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. And when I receive it, I will say, got it. And then it will go into rotation, and at a specific time, unspecified right now, it will be read, and I will give you the date and time for that. Now, you can also go into the chat room. Yes, by going to blogtalkradio.com, and then you want to click on programs and get the Produce Justice Show. When you do that, click it one more time. Click it. And the chat room will come up, and you can get in there. And for your pleasure or for understanding or whatever adjective you choose to do or use, Constructive Action Items has put together a list of things that we have talked about perhaps on this show, because we did not have a live show last week, but it's usually on there, and give you the updates on it. And everybody in that room I can see right now is codified. Thank you. Text Green 777. Yeah, swah. Hey, gotcha, bro. All in the house. So do that. B. Sams, you know you're there. All right? All right. All righty. So let's get ready. Let's do the second hour, and we're going to start. We're going to go down to Houston now. Yeah, maybe I'll land at Hobby Airport. Cleo! Wait a minute. Ooh. Hey, can I get Cleo back? Because I think I got him off. Anyway, let me do the Cleo call back, and we'll get you back on. Swah. I think, let's see, there you go. Wait a minute, button. Hey, it's not working
Yeah,
here.
I think I'm here.
Oh, it is? Oh, okay. There you go, Swar. All righty. Good morning, my brother.
Greetings, Mr. Bobby. Greetings, Miss Neely Fuller-Jaren. Miss Neely Fuller-Jaren, my question is, what constructive results have you observed from being suspicious of white people?
What constructive results have I observed from being suspicious of white people?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm not suspicious of white people except just to say that in a system of white supremacy, I can expect to be racist because that's a requirement in a system of white supremacy. And so I have to persuade those that I can not to be racist. And how do I do that? Take away the idea that you have to have a system of white supremacy in order to produce a thing called justice, that you can produce it without the system of white supremacy, because that's the premise. The white supremacists say, well, you can't have anything without white supremacy. I mean, it makes sense. You know, it's the best form of government ever thought up. And there's an excellent argument from their viewpoint, those who think like that, for that. Because they'll say, look at all the governments that have come before. Have you seen a more efficient government ever or heard of one? Except all the exaggerations you get from some people about ancient history, what happened 18,000 years ago and all that. And they'll say, but the most progressive government out of all the governments you have ever seen in recorded history, in modern history, is the system of white supremacy. And if you tried any other government, a lot of them are excellent governments, but they have all kinds of, I mean, they just fall apart. They have all kinds of flaws that the system of white supremacy doesn't have when it comes to making fast progress. So you don't have a record of people ever being able to fly through the air at great speeds like you have now. That's because of the system of white supremacy. Nobody's done this before. People should stop complaining. You're looking at the next thing to heaven itself. A government under the system of white supremacy. And black people, you know, black people are always bragging about the things that white supremacists produces. We line up. I'm gonna get me one of them. Give me some of them shoes. You know, I'm gonna get on that airplane. You seen that new one come up? Boy, they got one now. They. See, it's always they. Who is this mysterious they? The white supremacists. That's who. Big Mama. Big Daddy. Yeah. Ooh, look at that airplane. I'm going to get on there. Go over there and see if we can get in. I've seen this as long as, this is, hey, you know, we're all familiar with it. We're like that. Tell the truth and stop lying to ourselves. That's the worst thing you can do, to lie till you tell to yourself. You say, well, I worked in that factory. Yeah, because you were hired and grateful to get the job. So don't start bragging about that either. We ain't in a bragging position. None of us. Period. Well, my great-grandfather, he did a lot of great things too, yeah, but, you know, where is he now? What happened? When people start bragging about all the great accomplishments of black people in the history books, I've always asked, after they get through talking, what happened? They say, well, we were like Malcolm X said, outsmarted, bamboozled,
Bamboozled. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I say, well, now, what does that say? You were outsmarted? What does that say? I mean, stop. I mean, before you go any further with all this waving some kente cloth. You were outsmarted? Just hold that right now. Don't run past that. Please, folks, wake up. Stop acting. This ain't theater. We got to solve problems. Now, the white supremacists, in answer to the question, have come up with the most productive system ever in recorded history for handling things. But you could have done the same thing without mistreating people. And that is the thing that we should fight against. We can admit to all the other things. We can say, hey, and the white supremacists step forward, start talking about their great inventions and all that. You can say, yeah, okay. Okay, Mac, you invented everything, okay? But wait a minute. Is anybody being mistreated? Because when it comes down to, inventions don't mean nothing if people are being mistreated. When it comes down to it, inventions don't mean nothing if people are being mistreated. Is anybody being mistreated? Do you have killing in these modern streets? All right? Do you have fights on airplanes that you brag about? See, we don't have the type of interaction between people that we should have. Why? Because your whole apparatus is built on mistreating people. All right, and that's the only thing we're talking about.
All right.
See, a lot of black people say that I'm putting black people down so much there ain't no point in even talking to Fuller. Because, I mean, he ain't talking about nothing except just lambasting black people. That's not true. I'm black. I'm talking about the best way to go about this. So that white people will stop lying, and white people stop lying to the system of white supremacy about just about everything, and black people stop lying about the same things. And everybody just tell the truth. Somebody accomplishes something that's great, say so. Doesn't make no difference who it is and whatnot. Somebody's messing up, say so.
That's true.
Because that will help the system, end the system of white supremacy faster than anything. Be willing to tell the truth on everybody.
Yes,
on everybody. Because none of us are the quality of people that we should be. White or non-white, not one.
I remember that they used to have a program, a very popular program called To Tell the Truth. Sure did. A long time ago. Swah! Thank you, brother. You always in there. Enjoy you in the chat, too, because you do both. You all right, multi-talented guy you are. Okay. Cleo, let me see if I can do this right without pushing you out. Get ready, Cleo. Okay. Wait a minute. Okay, Cleo, you're in.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Bobby. Long live NFJ and forever live Logic. So grateful to the Produce Justice team, Sharon, Moon Pie, and Robert. Appreciate you guys. Hey, I got a quick question here for Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, as someone who identifies himself as an eclectic pluralist, how do you manage contact and or interaction with family, friends, and associates who identify with the Christian religion you were raised in? And then I got a quick follow-up to that as you answer it.
Constructive contacts. See, that's the key. I mean, I don't want anybody who is listening throughout the world or wherever, I want that to take root. Those two words, constructive contacts. And how do you go about it in a practical, systematic way? Has to do with people's wants. That's all. You don't have to sit around and argue about religion and what Jesus said. I mean, on and the Sermon on the Mount and all that, and start shouting and getting in arguments and storming out of the place and whatnot. All you got to do, I don't care what religion anybody has. Everything is either constructive or non-constructive. And how do you do that? By asking questions when you interact with people. And asking questions about what? What do you want to do? And then ask a whole series of questions, starting with, what do you want me to do? Just those two things. And then the next questions, like on page 171, 172, just elaborate on those questions. You can't get lost. That's what a code is for. And an answer to your question, whether they're talking about religion or anything like that. Just listen to them talk, and they can say that they believe in this church, and Reverend Jones got the answer to everything, and if you just come to church and with Reverend Jones and the way he interprets the Bible, everything will be all right all throughout the entire world. And if they say that, don't argue. Just say, okay, well, what do you want me to do? Why do you want me to do it? How do you plan for me to do it? And what do you expect the constructive result to be? See? Constructive result. Those two words standing out in everything that it's saying. Because that's all you want to come away with anyway, and that's all you want to bring when you interact with everybody. And everything's going to fall in place. I don't care what religion anybody's got. If it produces constructive results when you make contact with them, and it's a scientific way of doing that, produces constructive results when anybody say, well, I'm a Buddhist. Well, okay, that's fine. You say, well, do you know anything about Buddhism? No. But you do, I guess. Say, I know everything about Buddhism. Say, okay. Now, what do you want me to do? And so they'll tell you. And so you ask questions. Why do you want me to do it? That's your next question. And then you say, how do you plan for me to do it? Because if it's something they want you to do, the person that always wants you to do something should have a plan for you to do it.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay? Yeah, and they should give you the whole plan.
Yeah.
All right. And then after that, number 4, what do you expect the constructive result to be? So you say, well, the constructive result will be whatever it is. And don't help a person with an answer. That's another thing. Once you ask your question, just sit back and be patient. I don't care if you have to wait, into eternity until, you're asking the question. You already got your answers, so you don't need to throw that in there. But you want the other person's answer. And let the person tell you what the constructive result will be. And then you can have a follow-up question. You can look at what they said and say, now, how is that constructive? Because I came to you, I wanted a series, a set of problems, all right? Because something constructive, putting up a house, is doing what? Solving a problem. The problem of what? Not having a roof over your head. That's what. That can be a problem.
That can be a problem.
When it starts raining and rain all over your papers and whatnot. So, that's why you're doing it. Things are basically simple. Keep it that way.
Yes, sir.
It's not all that complicated. Don't let the words get in the way.
Where's your follow-up, Cleo?
Yes, sir, Mr. Bobby. What are your reasons, Mr. Fuller Jr., for converting from Christianity to eclectic pluralism?
Oh, I didn't convert from Christianity to pluralism. I was always a pluralist. I just recognized what I was. Pluralist means what? Pluralism, it means exactly what it says in the book. I invented eclectic pluralism and put a religious stamp on it. That's all it is. That's just something that I did. But I invented something, not that something that was I invented the way that people think about inventions. I just invented some words to describe what I was already doing. And that is being confused about religion, which is what I am. The ladies called in several weeks ago and asked me, "Are you a Christian?" And I answered by saying, "I don't know. What is it? What is a Christian?" And that is my answer now for anybody who really wants to know, for your information. Neely Fuller. Is Neely Fuller a Christian? Well, Neely Fuller has been asked that question, and his answer was an honest answer. I don't know. Why? Because I don't know what a Christian is. Every time I talk to somebody, I get a different kind of answer. "Oh, that ain't no Christian. The real Christian is over here in Reverend Brown's church." I don't know what church you've been to. See, I've been getting that. So I really don't know, because I don't want to argue with nobody about religion, because I know where that's going. Okay? It's going to turn out to be a fight, too, somewhere along the line. There's going to be bloodshed. And I can get that anywhere. I can go in any, any juice joint and get a fight. I don't need to fight about something that's important as the creator of the universe, and talking about the creator of the universe and what the creator of the universe wants me to do. That's an important assignment. I don't want to get that mixed up. But when I talk to people, so far, everybody's got a different opinion about how to go about doing it. And when I came up with eclectic pluralism, I'm saying I'm still searching.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a label except eclectic pluralism when it comes to religion. And so what is eclectic pluralism? It means you are seeking what the true religion is, because you don't know. And you haven't run across anybody who's competent enough or to make you competent enough to make an intelligent decision. So I listen to everybody of every religion. Jehovah's Witness, Mormons, who, people say they have a history of being hostile to black people and all like that. I listen. Okay. Because when it comes to religion, I just want to know three things. And that's in the code book. That's
in the
what
code.
I mean by having a code.
Yes, sir.
And what are those three things? What's the name of your religion? Question one. Question two, what does your religion require you to do in all 9 areas of activity? Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, other people's religions, sex, and war. That covers enough.
Mm-hmm.
Just ask any person that. What's the name of your religion? And then ask them if they have plenty of time, because it's going to take time. What does their religion require them to do in each one of those 9 areas of activity? And then the third question is, what does your religion require you to do when you interact with me in all of these areas of activity? 9 of them that I just named.
Mm-hmm.
That way I get an understanding of your religion. Now, I don't need to know nothing else. What is the name of your religion? Because most religions have names. what does your religion require you to do? That's the person with the religion. They said that's their religion. Now, once you see them do anything that their religion doesn't require them to do, you've got questions about it. You don't condemn them or anything like that because it ain't your religion.
Right.
See? The code says, wait a minute, did you tell me 2 weeks ago that your religion requires you to do this, this, and this? And yesterday I saw you doing this, this, and that. Now, did you violate your religion or not? And let them answer. Don't answer for them. And don't argue about it. But now you know, if a person's trying to sell you their religion, if it's their religion, they must be trying to sell you on something that they practice. See what I mean? If they violate their religion, what do you think you're going to do? You don't need no religion you're going to violate. You might as well not have it at all. See what I mean? Hey, it proves itself. See, black people should never be in a conflict with each other about that. That's why I codified this religious thing so that nobody can squirm around it. I don't care who they are.
Yes, sir. All righty, Cleo. Thank you, man. And you did not lose your spot. All righty. Thank you so much. Mr. Bobby Gmail. Furland. This is from Furland. Mr. Fuller. It says this. All the things that Mr. Fuller has been warning non-white people to stop doing is now being forcefully stopped by these viruses. First, it was saying or staying away from each other. That was stopped by COVID. And now it's hugging and high-fiving that is being stopped by monkeypox. Could you please ask Mr. Fuller whether he noticed this pattern also? Thank you. Furland.
I know all people have a tendency to keep doing what they're used to doing. All creatures do this. Keep doing what they're used to doing. So black people are still trying to do what they used to do. They're trying hard, regardless of what's coming at them. And they're doubling down on killing each other, all right in the midst of the COVID virus. We're trying to find more reasons to kill each other than ever. The death rate among black people from killing each other is not decreasing, it's increasing. So in answer to the question, no, it's making black people worse, COVID-19. Because our minds have not improved. See, everything is in the mind. So we're just trying to find a way to get around COVID, get to each other, so that we can haul out that pistol as fast as we possibly can and see how many people that look like me can I gun down and then jump in a car and go tearing down the street. Big deal. Something to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
Black culture at its best.
Okay. All righty. Another Gmail. This is from, who is this? Oh, Future Began. Says this. Mr. Fuller, when June Jordan and Buckmaster Fuller tried to redesign Harlem, would this project be a refinement of white supremacy? Buckmaster Fuller, would he be the one to call a suspicious white racist, although he does like a universal man? Have a great day.
Let's see now. Does Neely Fuller do what?
First, he asked, was June Jordan and Buckmaster Fuller tried to redesign Harlem. I don't know if you were familiar with that. I know we talked once before about Buckmaster Fuller. I asked, is he some relation to you? But anyway, apparently they must have tried to redesign Harlem. And he said, or they said, would this be a project of refinement of white supremacy?
It could be. It depends on what the effect of it is. if it has that effect, a refinement of white supremacy, if black people, after everything is redesigned, meaning the buildings and all like that. I don't know what they had in mind and all like that, but if black people's minds do not change, all those fancy buildings and all, and that doesn't help. You got to always look at the result, constructive result.
Yes.
You say, now, the buildings are excellent, but now, the black people still act the same when they go in these buildings? They still got the same values?
You're asking questions
They still want to put each other down? Then that hasn't been an improvement at all. The whole idea for improving the environment of people is to improve the mindset of people. That's the whole idea.
Okay. And he said, well,
according to everything I've learned, if you're going to read the sign, you say, well, we're going to, this area is run down. I mean, it's awful. It's an eyesore. I mean, and then they say you get depressed just looking at it. But we come in and we put up, everything all pristine and everything all green and everything all pretty and shiny. I mean, no trash nowhere, no paper cups lying around, and no whiskey bottles. Now this is a great improvement. This is beautiful. This is wonderful. But the people didn't change. Well, really, nothing changed. If the people didn't change, nothing changed. You got to look at it that way, because the whole point for making the environment beautiful is for the people to start acting beautiful.
And that's true. He says, goes on to say, although he does talk a lot like a universal man, would he, in your opinion, be the one to call a suspicious white a racist? In your opinion?
Would I be the one to call
would he,
that
no,
white
would
person?
Buckmaster Fuller be the one? Buckminister Fuller. Would he be the one that would, although he does talk like a universal man, would he be the one to call a suspicious white a racist?
Well, in a system of white supremacy, it's almost impossible for a white person who is able to be a racist not to be a racist. That's just the way it's structured. I didn't make it that way. I'm just calling it what it is, and that is the truth if you examine it. Some white people begin to say, in fact, I heard several years ago a white woman gasp when she says, oh, when you really examine what white people actually do every day, I'm a racist. And she said, oh, my God. And I'm saying that's what I've been trying to point out. I think you're in a racist system, lady. Ain't no way in the world. If you may think that you're what they call a liberal and all this and whatnot. No. You're in a racist system and you were born white. It wasn't your fault you were born white. But it's your fault that if you're not doing everything you can to end the racist system. And there ain't no way for you to change in this racist system without changing the system, ma'am. That's just the way it works. You cannot be a subway passenger, a passenger on a subway, without being a passenger on a subway. You cannot deny it. You can say, well, I would like to be an airplane passenger. But that's not what you are, fella. You're sitting on the subway. You're a subway passenger. You didn't get on an airplane. You got to get on an airplane to be an airplane passenger. So if you're in the system of white supremacy, you're born into it, and you're white, you're born into a system of white supremacy, and you're going to be participating as a white supremacist.
Yes, sir.
It's a no-brainer. And it's unavoidable. So you have to replace the entire system of white supremacy with a system of justice. That's the antidote. It ain't personal, it's business.
It's business. And for those who didn't know, Richard Buckminster Fuller was an American architect, a system theorist. Architecture theory. I guess he was famous for his lattice shell structures, geodesic domes, which have been used as parts of military radar stations, civic buildings, environmental protest camps, and exhibition attractions. So now you know a little bit about Richard Buckminster Fuller, and no relation to you as far as you know. Is that correct?
Not only that, he's white.
Well, what does that have to do with?
That has to do with everything.
Okay. You're listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Thank you for the musical cue. And if you'd like to be in contact with the program, all you have to do is do this. What do you want to do? Call this number, 516-453-9921. Press the number 1 button, and you'll get in line as John has, and Ray, and RT, and look like we got somebody, a new caller from Georgia. Get in line. Yeah, just call that number. Don't be scared, new caller. Don't be scared. We're all friendly here. We follow the code. And then make sure you do give your name to the call screener. I don't know if it's going to be Robert or Sharon or Moon Pie, which I need to see him or talk to him. But anyway, that's what you do. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY at gmail.com. I will say I got it, and then you'll get in that rotation. And then it will be read like these other two that I just did. And last but not least, you can join the chat. All you have to do is go to blogtalkradio.com, and then you want to click on programs or shows, whatever item is up in there. Anyway, when you do click on that, go to the Produce Justice show or program. And then you click that bad boy, and then a little box for the chat will come up, and you can get in the chat room and go to work. By the way, Constructive Action Items does have a list of the topics that we generally discuss on the program, and you can get an update on that. And our theme today, as Mr. Fuller has started out, has been constructive contacts. Constructive contacts. One more time, constructive contacts. So you may.
That's going to be the theme from now on.
Okay, now on theme. Okay.
Yes, I mean, constructive contacts. When do they end?
Well, that's a good point. When do they end?
No such thing as an ending. Constructive contacts with food, with anything, with your brother, with your aunt. Constructive contacts. Why end it? What are you going to replace it with? Non-constructive contacts? You already got that.
You say there's no ending to constructive contacts.
With everything in the universe, every black person should be similar. That we should wake up in the morning and go to bed at night. That every contact that I make, to the best of my ability, with anything, any creature, any animal, any dog, any snail, any white person, any black person, is going to be constructive to the best of my ability in order to produce the most constructive result. That does not end. That's not like some project that you start in the morning and this is a 2-week project. No, this is the entire existence. That's what we haven't had. We have very non-constructive contacts. Just about everything we touch is non-constructive.
Constructive contacts. Is there a beginning then? And since there's no end?
Sure, there's a beginning. I mean, we haven't started.
Okay. Oh, we haven't started. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean,
we'll work with that.
I mean, we do make. I'm talking about we haven't started making all of our contacts.
Oh, okay. Put that all in there. Okay.
Yeah, that means it's a continuing thing.
Okay.
See, the white supremacists got us thinking in these little project boxes that black people can only do 4 or 5 things, and then there's a cutoff point. And then you have them doing something else, then there's a cutoff point. Because if you don't cut it off, you're having them reach too far into areas that black people just don't have the capability of handling. So you always give them little baby projects. And so we've gotten accustomed to that. Oh, this is a black thing. What do you mean a black thing? You're in the universe. Well, I mean, the universe is too big. I just got to do my little thing over here in the closet, over here in the corner, down in the basement, all cuddled up, hiding from everything. See, that's what they call, they got that N-word. That's what they call that type of thinking. Yeah.
All righty. Speaking about being awesome and all that stuff, let's go back down to Houston. All right, get ready, John. We're getting ready to do it, man. All right, John, here you go. Give it to me, John. Here's John.
Grand Rising, gentlemen, because Houston, we have a problem.
Do it, man.
Mr. Fuller Jr., I still want to get my Muskogee question answered, hopefully, one day. But first, as a VGQ, since he made a very erudite and astute observation about where did the white people go? I mean, it was a variation of what he said before. It sounds to me that he doesn't resolve the problem. The white man is the problem. And eventually, I guess we will discuss how we remove that problem. Now, as a member of the Muskogee Creek Nation, I don't want to speak for you, Mr. Fuller, but I've always wanted to ask you, and this was a few weeks ago. I was at the very back end of the show, if you remember, Mr. Bobby.
I remember that one.
To bring it up effectively. However, two things has happened. That particular week was the congressional hearing about the freedmen, so-called black Indians, and their abuse by the tribes, the 5 civilized ones. And potentially this past Sunday, I don't know, you watch W. Kamau Bell, he had on the Native Americans with their hashtag Land Back, specifically to Mount Rushmore and the Black Hills. So I don't know if you ever watched his show, United Shades of America. It was quite intriguing. So having said that, okay, well then, Mr. Fuller, then maybe you can answer specifically to me. What I'm always intrigued to know is what did your grandparents or your great-grandparents, if you were able to interact with them, tell you about your interesting insight this morning is what is the culture of American Indian? And Mr. Bobby, if I could hang on to hear the response.
You know I'm gonna hang
Thank
you
you
on.
for the time.
Hang you up.
Y'all have
you
a wonderful morning.
Okay.
The question is,
what is the culture of an American Indian understood by you from your grandparents or your great-grandparents if you interacted with them as a young man?
I don't know. I don't know.
And that's your simple, direct answer. Okay. So then what I propose in asking the question is who is the true American, whether it's the Aborigine or the Indian, as they were called by the colonizers. And maybe you'll have some insight on that. Thank you again.
Oh, well, you can read almost any book. In answer to that question, you can read almost any book and you hear different viewpoints. Now, but what do I say in my book when you start talking about American?
Go ahead.
That's the question. What is an American according to the code? An American is a person that practices justice. So Americans don't exist, period. That's my answer, straight up. I'm talking about I'll go into anybody's court and make that flat statement. There's no such thing as an American person nowhere on the planet.
Did you say you're going to court to say that?
Am I asked to say that again?
Would you go into court and say that?
I'm in court. I always say that every black person is in court and always on trial. And you should look at yourself that way. There's no such thing as a black person going to court. You're on trial every day. You're in court. You're in a prison camp. See, we don't have, according to the code, and according to what I'm saying, that's based on logic. It's not because Neely Fuller is saying it. I'm saying for whatever evidence you can put together, that's what you come up with. Prisoners of war. That's what I am. I'm a victim of white supremacy. I'm that more than I am anything. Now, I've never been an American. And not only that, I've never met one, white or black. I've heard of a lot of them. Oh, I've heard of a lot of things. But according to the compensatory code, the counter-racist code, Americans don't exist. Africans or Asians don't either. You can't have Americans, Africans, or Asians, according to logic, in the same universe with the system of white supremacy. Either you have Africans, Americans, or Asians. You can have a lot of things if you don't have the system of white supremacy. So the question is, does white supremacy exist? Not do Americans and Africans and Asians exist. Does the system of white supremacy exist, which means the most powerful government, which means effectively the only government on planet Earth? Yes or no? Now, a lot of people say it doesn't. Now, according to what I have in the textbook for victims of white supremacy, once a person says that white supremacy doesn't exist, then they're talking, when they're talking to Neely Fuller, they're talking to the wrong person. Because, there's no point in us talking at that point. You have to start with the premise that the system of white supremacy does exist, and that means no other government, worthy of being called a government, exists. And when you look at a government of an American government, an African government, an Asian government, what are the definitions of an Asian or an African or an American? That's the question. They are people who practice justice. Because if they don't practice justice, why be anything anyway? All right? That's the logic. I'm talking about the logic of the universe now. I'm not talking about what you just learned hanging around in the barber shop. I'm talking about the logic of the entire universe, which is, what enables people to do anything that's worth anything. The universe around you. It means you find the truth and you don't turn loose to it, even when it hurts your feelings, which black people got to get out of that.
Okay.
Oh, I'm just looking for anything to stop my feelings from being hurt. Well, that's how we got on cocaine. We need to just grab things that we usually wouldn't grab onto and just say, hey, if it's something that's logical, if it's something that's constructive, that's the way we're going.
That's the way we're going. Okay.
And stop trying to walk through what we call some mysterious black culture and all this. That's a bunch of nonsense, all of it. Culture is what you do at the time that you're doing it. And if you're a black person doing it, that's your culture. If you're cutting somebody's throat or beating somebody out of some money or snatching some gumballs off of a counter and running down the street with it at age 13, that's black culture. Why? Because there's a black person doing it, that's why. You got to stop dressing things up with a whole lot of fancy words and call everything exactly what it is.
Okay.
It's a form of insanity to do that. And we're becoming more and more insane by lying to ourselves, not only about white people, but about ourselves, and looking for more lies. To do what? To make ourselves feel good.
Wow. Okay. All righty. Hey, John, my brother, you're on hold, but listen here. Thank you. And at Mount Rushmore, before it was, well, that's what you and I know it as. But check out the Lakota Nation. It was called the Land of the Six Grandfathers, okay? And guess who changed it? Check that out. Talk to me next week, or talk to us next week. Ray in the Big D, DFW. Go ahead. Come on, man. Bring it, Ray. Come on.
Good morning, gentlemen. Mr. Bobby, could you please leave me on the line, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Fuller, since the system of white supremacy operates globally without borders, in your opinion, is there any constructive result to black people globally delineating from each other while at the same time requesting compensation from the white supremacy? And what I mean by delineation is separation of tribes and groups that you want to be called and referenced by.
The suggestion is for black people to do what?
Yes, sir. I'll just ask my question again. Since the system of white supremacy operates globally without borders, is there any constructive result to black people globally delineating from each other while at the same time requesting compensation from the white supremacists? And what I mean when I say delineation is separation of black people by tribal names that they want to be called by.
The suggestion is, should black people separate from each other by doing what? What do you mean by separation?
Yes, sir. Based on the names that they want to be referred to.
In order to do what?
In order to receive compensation from the white supremacists.
Should black people separate from each other in order to receive compensation from the white people? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
I don't see. First of all, I don't see why that first part is necessary. I don't know what you mean by separate. Black people go where the white supremacists tell black people to go. Black people can't, whatever you mean by separation. In a whole world that's dominated by the system of white supremacy, how do white people separate from white supremacy? I mean, that's just the first part. And separate in order to do what? What do you mean by separate? When are you separate? I mean, each individual is separate, so each individual can just walk off. You can, if you can walk off into space if you want to, if you find out the way to do that. But how does one separate from, if one is a prisoner of war, from being a prisoner of war without being a prisoner of war in the first place?
Okay.
A lot of suggestions are made, but when it comes down to the mechanics part, the actual doing part, and that's what I'm saying about it. Everything is about doing. If you notice, Neely Fuller has a head full of theories about this and that and the other and all over the place. And I'm quite sure everybody on the planet has. Every bird on the planet has a lot of theories about. But when it comes to the doing part, how does a victim of white supremacy separate from the white supremacists when the white supremacists say that you are going to continue to be my victim? Now you got to do something. They say, well, I'm going to separate from them. Well, if the person just said, you're not going nowhere. Where are you going to go? If you go anywhere on this planet, you're under my domain, because there's no place on this planet that you can go that I'm already there. In fact, I got to take you there, because you don't know where it is. All you dumb black people, y'all don't know where nothing is. Thus, I take you.
Wow. Ooh, ouch. Okay, Ray.
It's still the truth now.
Yeah, you are. You're on hold, Ray. I got you. Okay, new caller alert. New caller alert. Looks like D from Georgia. Get ready, D. Don't be scared. Ready? Here we go. Let me cue you there. Hey, you're in. Go for it.
Hello. I'm going to make my question real quick. Mr. Fuller, do you think that if the non-white people of the planet, a.k.a. black people, if they were to take the approach of a kamikaze pilot in World War II, if we took that approach to addressing white supremacy, would that yield constructive results?
Kamikaze programs?
Yes, sir. The kamikaze pilot.
You're talking about war, right?
Well, it could be classified as a war.
Under the 9 areas of activity, you're talking about the war section.
Correct. But I would say let's in a different manner. Like, let's not get in planes and like blow ourselves up, but in the sense of maybe like we withdraw from the system in all 9 areas. Like, we no work, we don't play sports anymore, don't be in movies, don't go to the military, just don't do anything, and just see if that will push the white supremacy.
Or you want to, broadly speaking, you're talking about codifying whatever we do in all areas of activity, correct?
Correct.
That's already in the book. That's what I wrote the book for. What to do, because all it comes down to is what to do and what not to do, what to say and what not to say. Everything in the universe about doing and saying, or a combination of saying and doing. That applies to everybody. So what you do is just make sure that all of your contacts with the things that you are doing, when you do something, you're making contact with things and or people. Every time you make a move, you're making a move, and if you touch something, that's a contact. If you touch the butt of a gun, that's a contact. And what's going to be the result of you touching the butt of that gun? And you put that hand all around that grip, and then you don't break that contact and take that pistol that grip is a part of and put it in your belt. And you walk around with it, and it's loaded, and you take it out and you point it, and you pull what they call a trigger. These are contacts. And when you pull that trigger, a bullet is going to come out of the barrel of it, and it's going somewhere, and that bullet will make contact with a tree or a person or something else, and that causes other people to make contacts with you. It draws some people who also come with some tools that they made contact with, and then you all make a joint contact and a joint contract right there, maybe, for a brief period. And then people started making other contacts, like with pencils and yellow tape and stuff like that. You know, these are contacts. Everything is contact. Code book is about everything involving a non-white person. Everything that non-white person does or says in making contact has a constructive result. You're going to pick up that fork and stick that fork in something while you're sitting there at that plate, what is that something? Oh, that something turns out to be some spinach and olives and kale and a little bit of avocado. Now that's a contact with you and a fork and a plate full of food that I just named. And you eat that food with that fork. And that food makes contact with the rest of your body. Now, there's only one question here. One question. What you put in your body with that fork by making contact with the fork that made contact with the plate, food that was on the plate, those objects on the plate, and you put it in your mouth and it went to your stomach. Now, the stomach is sitting there waiting to receive something. And when it sees spinach and avocados and olives and kale, mixed greens, some beans, lots of beans, does that food say, now this, I'm going to be a welcoming committee? That's what your body says, from what I've been told, to what's coming down the chute. Oh, boy, I've been waiting on something like this. Man, because all week long I had put up with nothing but vodka, and I couldn't take it. I was sending a whole lot of it back.
Yeah.
See, your stomach got a mind of its own. All right? You put all that junk stuff in there and all like that and say, oh, Lord, my goodness, what am I doing? I mean, is anybody up there that's got any sense at all? I can handle this. We're not set up to handle this. We're warehousing down here, and we're also a processor. I got all this sugar, all this, man, good. What is this now? I mean, is this some rags or whatever? Your body says that.
Yes, sir.
Right. And why? Because these are contacts. They're either constructive or non-constructive. See, we've got to start looking at the world in a different way from what we've been seeing it. Everything.
Yes,
not
sir.
Just some things.
Everything. Constructive contacts.
Am I overtime? Just about running overtime, right?
No, we good. Robert has built it in, so we're good. We're good. Thank you.
Okay, well, I don't want to run over too much.
No, he got it under control. Thank you, caller from a new caller. Don't be a stranger. Black Tony says kamikaze program really didn't work, although we are buying a lot of Hondas, Lexus, and computer chips. So who really won the war? Okay, all righty, Black Tony. And how about this quote here? Solve problems without making
any
problems. That comes from Constructive.
Well, that's code anyway. That's already in the code. Solve problems without making any.
She always do code now. She's on point.
Oh, he's just reciting it.
Yeah, she just recited. Oh yeah, she's tough on it, man. She puts it right on out there. Still Learning has this, and then we'll get the last one of today. Still Learning says this. My goal, which begs the question, within the system of white racism, when is a black person considered grown?
When all problems are solved.
Okay. Let me put that
That's
down.
the compensatory view. Yes, we don't consider ourselves. See, grown means, hey, I'm finished. Ain't nothing else to do. You know, you can just kick back and look at space now.
Yeah.
No, as long as you got problems, you're not grown.
Okay, let me put that down. And Fuller is addressing your question now. All righty. So now you know. Okay, I believe this is going to be the last caller of the day, and guess who gets that? It's you. Yeah, constructive action. Here you go. Do your thing.
Greetings, Mr. Bobby. Greetings, Mr. Fuller. Why is the practice of no contact, no conflict important for two or more black people who are hostile toward each other?
Because if they are hostile toward each other, what they're going to get is hostility when they make contact. End of story. I don't like you. I don't want to be around you. I don't want to make contact with you. And if I make contact with you, I'm going to be hostile toward you and try to do destructive things. And you're going to do the same thing with me. So why make contact unless you're looking for conflict?
Okay.
And if you get conflict, what's the result of conflict? Somebody gets hurt.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
So if you don't make contact, nobody gets hurt. You're not going to hurt somebody you ain't in contact with. No contact, no conflict. That's in the code book.
The logic of that. All right. All right, constructive action, and thank you for all your contributions. We thank you. And Mr. Fuller, before we go, we got to talk about your book. This is the last minute or two. We have to talk about your book. So do your thing as we get ready to close out the show.
Yes, as of right now, you can go to producejustice.com, and a lot of the things we've been saying on here, and many, 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 many more things that have not been said, that will help people to, when you read them, you can pick up any one of the volumes. Usually the basic 2 volumes is what I recommend. The 1984, some people want that volume. But the 2016 edition, the 2010 edition, there are 2 volumes, but they're basically the same book. But you can get the 2016 edition, which is the main book to get. It's now in stock. Go to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And when you go through the pages, as a victim of white supremacy, if you don't consider yourself a victim of white supremacy, then the book may be a waste of time for you. But if you consider yourself a victim of white supremacy and you want to know what to do and say about it and what not to do and say about it, and there are suggestions about what to do and how to go about doing it, not in great detail, but in some detail, and some suggestions about what to say and what not to say, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Or just open the book in general and see if it's something that you can use that applies to you, and use it. It's written that way. It's selective. It's not dictatorial. You don't have to do any of it. It's up to you. If it works for you, work it. If it produces a constructive result for you, then that's what the book is for. I use my own book, even though I forget a whole lot of the stuff that I wrote in it. Okay. But that's why I wrote it. So that, because someone once said, the worst lead pencil in the world is better than the best memory.
Whoa. Okay. That's pretty good.
ProduceJustice.com.
With that, we're going to leave it there. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, all the callers. Hey, listen, we'll try to do better next week, but listen, thank you for giving us the pleasure of doing what we do, and hope you learned something today. Thank you, Mr. Fuller, for all the lessons that you have given us in the book. Thank you so much, and we'll hope to see you next week. Thank you. ProduceJustice.com.